Ooh, baby, the Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Savzu, the Rated R radio star, here once again. A little late on this one. It's kind of been a funny week as far as scheduling goes. But anyway, at some point, I'll explain everything. Well, I think everybody wants me to explain everything, or a lot of people want me to explain, like, literally everything, but we're not going to go there. Not yet. Still have a lot of episodes of user podcasts to do for that sort of thing. Anyway, it is time for your Wednesday Q&A that's coming out on a Thursday, again, just because of funny scheduling. But we'll get back to a more regular schedule starting next week. You know, we'll get Sovereign Tech out on, the Prime episode out on time, and we'll get some of your other stuff to you in pretty short order. Anyway, got a little bit of a different Q&A this week. There's a story that people asked about that I hinted at the very end of the Sovereign Tech Prime episode for this week, which has to do with kids or teenagers installing, a Facebook VPN for, and getting paid $20 a month to do so. Of course, really, they were just gift cards, but we're going to get into that. Got a few different little things, and oh man. Wait till we get to the album of the week. Is this a good time? In fact, it might already be album of the year. For the life of me, I can't picture what's going to top this one. I really can't picture it because this is, well, anyway, why spoil the surprise? Of course, if you already read the show notes, you know exactly what the album of the week is, but you haven't heard me talk about it yet. So anyway, but let's get into our Q&A here. Let's start talking stuff up. And well, one thing I want to say, so I guess we could do it in this order. We do have a tech thing, like I said, that we're going to get into, but why don't we get into a little fiction here? We have a couple of tech questions, actually. So I noticed a lot of you, I believe it was during my live hangout Q&A that we did on last Friday. I guess, was that February 2nd or February? No, it was February 1st. It was kind of a surprise that we did, but it had a great turnout. It was a lot of fun. And during that, I mentioned that I had read two books at that point by Olaf Stapledon. Okay, that being The Last and First Men, and also his book, Star Maker, which I had made the claim that Star Maker, and I know this is a bold claim, but I had made the claim that Star Maker is probably at the top of my list as far as being the greatest fiction book ever written. I mean, it knocked Dune, boom, right off. And I will be doing a full review of that book, as well as Last and First Men, as well as Odd John, and I might be able to even get into a review of a book called Sirius, kind of like the star, not like the, not like, what is it, the adjective or whatever, depending upon how you're using it. Why so serious? Not like that. But all of those books by Olaf Stapledon. I also have the Olaf Stapledon Reader that I ended up getting, which is a collection of his poetry, some of his letters, some conversations, which of all ironies came from Syracuse University. Syracuse University Press, actually, which Syracuse is kind of is in a way my hometown, in a way, in New York. So anyway, I'm going through that, and I'm sure I'll deliver some commentary on the book through that. The one I won't be reviewing, just so you know, is Nebula Maker, which is like a early draft of Star Maker, which I have kind of perused through. It's interesting, but anyway, I've noticed the point I'm bringing this up is because I'm going to do a review elsewhere. The point I'm bringing this up is that I've noticed a lot of you have decided to pick up the book and start reading. In fact, some of you are pretty far in too. I am very interested. If you would like, okay, I am not going to record my Olaf Stapledon review for a few days. It probably won't come out till next week. So if you want to write a review, or if you just a comment, whatever, if anyone listening to this wants to get that in, I will add it into my review episode of the novels of Olaf Stapledon. Now, obviously, I'm not reviewing every Olaf Stapledon novel, but there's a few that certainly Star Maker, Last and First Men, and Odd John. I definitely want to review those. I will not, there's no way I'll be able to finish Last Men in London, which was the sequel to Last and First Men, even though I think really Odd John and Star Maker both fit in with the universe of Last and First Men. But anyway, we'll get into that conversation when we record that episode. But I'm glad that everyone's really enjoying it. And it sounds like people are seeing the same thing that I saw. And also the person that initially introduced me to it and said, Brian, you're going to love this. You got to read this. And I mean, she was absolutely right. But anyway, is that, just how expansive, just how huge this is. It's really Star Maker better than any other work of fiction that I've read. Work of fiction, mind you. really brings to fore the galactic mindset that I've espoused and talked about on Sovereign Tech, where you think about things on a galactic scale. I mean, obviously, Star Maker goes even beyond that, but at the very least, it gives you that thought process of the galactic mindset, and I love it for that. And it's a mindset that I wish more people would adopt, would start thinking about, stop thinking about things on such a micro scale of how is this going to just affect my town or my country, quote unquote, whatever the fuck that is, or whatever, or even the Earth, but where it affects on an absolutely galactic scale. I think if we thought that way, kind of like when the astronauts would go to the moon, and yes, they did, when they go to the moon and they'd look back and they'd say, it's amazing how when you look back on that planet, how all the petty squabbles that we have as a species are so fucking meaningless. And I think the person might have actually said fucking meaningless when you look at when you see the Earth from the moon. And that's part of that original quote from an astronaut it might have been Ed Mitchell. That's really one where, where it got me started as a young man thinking, no, we got to think on a galactic mindset. Now, I might have forgotten it for a little while, but, you get back to it pretty quickly. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad everybody's enjoying, or it sounds like a lot of people are enjoying Olaf Stapledon, and that it's nice to know that if I tell you, hey guys, look, this is really great, that you'll listen to me. In fact, someone got back with me, another great patron, said my review of Aquaman, of the movie Aquaman, and he just said, he said, Brian, when you're right, you're right. Like that movie was fucking amazing. And anyway, it helps me feel not so alone, right? I feel vindicated when these things happen. So anyway, someone else, another patron, she actually shared a little while back, and I want to bring this is part of the Q&A. I want to bring this to your attention. And here it is. Just heard about, this is from the Patreon page, just heard about this site, anarchysf.com. It's a list of anarchist and anarchy adjacent sci-fi. A lot in the list looks more adjacent to me, but I love the idea behind it. Yeah, so I checked out this site. The link is in the show notes if anyone else wants to check it out. I agree. A lot of it is more adjacent. A lot of it is like, oh, they mention anarchism, and so we'll put it in there. It really just brings to mind the site anarchysf.com. And it's not just books. There's also cartoons, there's movies, there's all kinds of things. Like some of what gets listed off is some of my favorite shit ever. Like Peter Chung's Aeon Flux. I love Aeon Flux. Not the movie so much with Charlize Theron, but the original, cartoon that would play late at night on MTV, along with Beavis and Butthead, of course, which I'm a huge fan of. There's a lot of mentions of the works of Brian Aldiss, which is kind of fitting because Brian Aldiss, oh boy. Well, anyway, Brian Aldiss is a huge fan of Olaf Stapledon and one of his biggest supporters, and has always claimed that Stapledon was one of his biggest influences. And Brian Aldiss's works, I'm a big fan of Aldiss. Again, I don't know how I know I heard the name, but I don't know how I missed reading Stapledon, because I've read Arthur C. Clarke to no end. I've read Brian Aldiss's work quite a bit, some of which is a little more intriguing than others, but it's generally great work. Anyway, there's a lot to look through here as far as anarchist science fiction goes. I have a dear friend, Rich Dana, who runs he ran or runs Obsolete Press, which was this idea of like kind of bringing back the whole zine scene, with magazines and newsletters and all that, but like in physical form. He did an entire, I'm sure you can still buy it. He did an entire like anthology, which was just Anarcho SF. I was originally supposed to do, I don't think we ever did a volume 2. I was supposed to write the intro to volume 1. I feel bad I never got around to doing that. Now I could certainly do it. And now that I've, actually published books, I feel a lot more confident in doing that sort of thing. I hope that opportunity presents itself in the future, or maybe I'll do some kind of project like that. Because to some degree, my schedule has opened up a bit as late. So, maybe I'll make that happen. Regardless, anarchysf.com, you can check it out and see if there's stuff there that you like. But because so much of it is more anarchy adjacent, meaning that like it kind of fits with anarchy. I mean, and that often annoys me because a lot of people, like for example, they have Akira listed here, the classic anime Akira from the 90s, which is, well, okay, actually it's from 88, but it became a big deal in the 90s in America, right? This is kind of like what really set. In fact, Angry Video Game Nerd did a great review of it recently for Rental Reviews that I recommend checking out if you've never seen Akira. And obviously watch the anime, for fuck's sake. So anyway, Akira, I wouldn't call Akira an anarchist work at all. Like, not even close. In fact, half of Akira doesn't even make any fucking sense. So it's just really cool, and really influential as far as its visual flair and style. But this is a problem that I have. And the same thing happens with popular shows like Firefly. People say, oh, Firefly is so libertarian. No, it's not. And Joss Whedon's not even remotely libertarian. Not even remotely. Not like so fucking far from it. And if you want actual, like, far closer to, like, I mean, if you're just thinking that, oh, it's libertarian because it's against tyranny, well, there's all kinds of shit that's labeled off as against tyranny, and it's a lot better than Firefly and ran for much longer. Blake 7, for one, I mean, there's a slew. So, you can't give me that shit, right? That's what I get annoyed with that. When, I mean, I agree with this patron. She's right. This is a, very, very interesting resource. If anything, the bulk of what I see listed here is great to watch or read anyway. Whether it's anarchist or not, it's tremendous work. So, that's fine. So I appreciate her I really appreciate her sharing it. But I do get annoyed when people like try to read into things. In fact, you can even see like they'll list off, okay, how did this end up getting included into this website? And they'll say, well, somebody on libcom.org said that this was, they felt this was very, anarchist or something. And I know I just lost half of you when I said libcom, but get over it. But it's, it's just like, come on. Don't read into shit. Either it comes out and it says, no, we're fucking anarchist, or we're egoist, or something like that, or it doesn't. You're either, I mean, and it just goes to show just how little fiction there is out there that is specifically anarchist. Now, Stapleton, I actually would argue, is quite anarchist. I think his work, just on the grand scale that it plays on, is very anarchist. Also, when you get to the book, if you decide to read his other works, if you decide to read Odd John, there's a point where, well, I'll give you, I mean, it's not spoiling the story at all, but Odd John is basically the story about a human that is born who is beyond human. And in fact, it's the first time that the term Homo superior, instead of Homo sapien, the term Homo superior was ever coined in literature. This would become a term very popular with Marvel for the X-Men, decades later, right? So anyway, Odd John is this member of Homo superior. And he tries to find other people like him, etc. Anyway, he seems to be very fond of communism, but he makes it very clear that communism is the beginning, not the end game. It's like communism is just like this point to get to this next level. I'm not saying I agree with that. I am just saying that Stapleton very clearly is talking about getting like even past communism. And if you're getting past that, which some people would argue is the ultimate expression of the state, there's a big conversation to have around that, okay? But if you're looking to get past that, you are becoming anarchist. And, whether or not you're saying the word anarchist at that point, because you're getting beyond these ideological expressions, you are anarchist. Just like, I think that Ian Banks with the Culture series, probably the best-selling anarchist science fiction work ever and the most well-known. Aside from maybe Ursula, Le Guin's, The Dispossessed or something like that, out of her, what was that? I keep forgetting, not the Hasnian League or the Hasnian, whatever. Anyway, the books with Left Hand of Darkness and all that, obviously those are popular as well. But like that's one where it's blatantly says, no, we're anarchist, right? In The Dispossessed. With Ian Banks' Culture series, it is admitted, and Ian Banks would certainly admit to it. So, it's there, even if it's not necessarily in, when you read Consider Phlebas that you necessarily get a mention of anarchy or something like that. So it needs to be, if it's not explicit, it needs to be hardcore implicit. Otherwise, I think you're reading into shit. And I think that if you really want to know whether or not a book is actually anarchist, I would look into the ideology, or if it's pro-anarchism anyway, look into the ideology and what you can find out about the creator, about the writer or the filmmaker or whatever. And if they themselves are not anarchists, don't pretend that their works are. Again, for example, Joss Whedon and so on. Like again, he's not even close to being libertarian. Not even fucking close. Stop it. Okay, like stop giving that guy any credit for shit. But anyway, okay, so yeah, anarchysf.com. Check it out. It might be a good resource for you. All right, so why don't we move on to our next bit of our tech bit, and this is in reference to, well, something that like I said, I mentioned at the end of, was that episode 313 of Sovereign Tech Prime, where Facebook is paying teens to install a VPN on their phone that, and like they're paying them $20 a month. Now, like I said, they are paying them in gift cards. It's not like they're cutting them a check and sending that to them. I had made the comment on the show where I was just like, oh, for fuck's sake, like people will do anything for just $20 a month. They'll hand over all of their data, which inherently is everything that, or so much of what they do, especially if you're the kind, as I'm sure many teens are, where they're carrying around their smartphone with them all the time. And so, I mean, yeah, and your browsing habits, perhaps even your purchasing habits. So this is called Project Atlas is the name of it. And Facebook bought a VPN service a little while back, I remember, and they were baking it into their main Facebook app. Facebook's in a lot of trouble, obviously. Okay, that's for sure. But let me read a little bit of the story here. I actually have the link from TechCrunch. It was provided by, of course, my Star Wars Update co-host, Robin Freebeard. And in fact, he had a funny comment. He said, let's see, here it is. He said, then, colon, kill your television. Now, colon, kill your social media. I mean, absolutely. I totally agree. But anyway, let me read a little bit of the story here. This is from TechCrunch. Desperate for data on its competitors, Facebook has been secretly paying people to install a Facebook Research VPN that lets the company suck in all of a user's phone and web activity, similar to Facebook's Inavo Protect app that Apple banned in June. That was the original VPN that I was talking about, and that was removed in August. Facebook sidesteps the App Store and rewards teenagers and adults to download the Research app and give it root access to network traffic in what may be a violation of Apple policy, so the social network can decrypt and analyze their phone activity. A TechCrunch investigation confirms. Facebook admitted to TechCrunch it was running the research program to gather data on usage habits. Since 2016, Facebook has been paying users ages 13 to 35, so even adults have been have been getting paid up to $20 per month. So it's up to $20. So there's a chance that maybe you're only getting $5, and you're like, oh yeah, here, no, look at everything I do on my phone, because this is basically a rootkit. All right. Anyway, reading on. Plus referral fees. Oh yes, share it with your friends. Your friends can, you'll get an extra $5. Your friends will get $5. Come on, this is a great deal. You just give Facebook everything. You give mommy Facebook all of your data, baby. Anyway, reading on. To sell their privacy by installing the iOS or Android Facebook Research app. Facebook even asked users to screenshot their Amazon order history page. The program is administered through beta testing services Applause, Betabound, and Utest to cloak Facebook's involvement, and is referred to in some documentation as Project Atlas, a fitting name for Facebook's effort to map new trends and rivals around the globe. 7 hours after the story was published, Facebook told TechCrunch it would shut down the iOS version of its research app in the wake of our report. But on Wednesday morning, again, this is just last week, okay, we're in February, just at the beginning of February 2019. But on Wednesday morning, an Apple spokesperson confirmed that Facebook violated its policies and it had blocked Facebook's research app on Tuesday before the social network seemingly pulled it voluntarily without mentioning it was forced to do so. Anyway, they have a whole report on that. Now, we got to stop on this we get the point, okay? But something to bring up that I didn't get to talk about on a Sovereign Tech Prime episode is that Facebook is in really, really hot water with Apple, where I mentioned it somewhere. Oh, I think I mentioned it on the live Hangout Q&A last week. Where Facebook's app, its enterprise apps, which were allowing for sideloading on iOS devices, were made ineffective by Apple, because Apple's like, hey, you got to go through the App Store. If you don't go through the App Store, you're breaking policies, and we're going to shut you down. And they did. And at Facebook HQ, employees couldn't even use their internal Facebook apps if they had an iOS phone. Android, it wasn't a problem. If they had an iOS phone, like to buy lunch and to do all kinds of other things and communicate internally, like kind of almost a bulletin, an internal company bulletin board of sorts, which is just like a giant Facebook group, more or less, I guess. But Apple, went nuts on it. And then, not to, I guess, to make sure that Facebook didn't feel alone, Apple did the same thing to Google, saying that they were sideloading shit, or that their app on iOS was a little too expansive, went a little too deep, and went beyond the App Store. Now, this is a challenge Amazon has had for years now in the App Store, where you can't buy a Kindle book. Okay, you can install a Kindle app on iOS devices, but you can't actually buy a book through that app. You have to, because that's, of course, for Apple, in that case, it's getting in the way of you buying from iBooks, I guess. That gets into such weird territory and kind of a different situation, but not really. And yeah, Facebook must have been scared to death when suddenly, oh shit, somebody told everybody about Facebook research, and they even tried to sneak it in through other beta testing apps, which, look, folks, okay, I understand. I was there years ago. I was at the point where I was like, yeah, I'll try beta testing things. Look, if there is a stable version of whatever you're using, use the fucking stable version. For the life of me, we talked about Signal, the Signal app in the recent Sovereign Tech Prime episode. And I've said this over the years. For the life of me, I cannot grasp why people use the beta version of the Signal app. If the purpose of you using Signal is to encrypt your communications, you're an activist or something like that, or you just want actual privacy, for the love of shit, do not use a beta version of an app that can have bugs, that can be testing out new features that have bugs, and so on. No, absolutely not. Now, that doesn't mean that the stable version doesn't have bugs too. It certainly can, but why play with fire? Why roll the dice like that? So unless, Tor, the Tor project, which I'm a huge supporter of. The Tor project, they have their new version of their browser for Android. They're just calling it the Tor browser. And it was an alpha. I think now it might actually be in beta. Okay, it's the only way you can use that, that app, is because it only has a beta version. In fact, I hope, because they said it would be very early in 2019, I hope that the stable version gets released very soon. Anyway, as soon as the stable version comes out, see you later, beta version. I am so on board with using, using the stable version of Tor browser. I don't want to use the beta version of that. But anyway, back to the actual story with this VPN and getting people through using Facebook research. Did they even know that it was really a VPN once they installed this app? This gets back to something else I said on Sovereign Tech Prime, where, hey, install as few apps as possible. Really install as few apps as possible, because you never know what these damn things are doing. And this app from Facebook specifically, and look, it's still out there on Android as far as I know. This app specifically is, it has near limitless control of your phone. Now, that's not new for a Facebook app, right? It's not like this is new territory for Zuckerberg and company, because the Facebook Messenger app can make phone calls for you, can read all of your texts. The permissions for Facebook Messenger are fucking horrendous. They're really, really bad. And it's true for most Facebook apps as well. So not necessarily anything new, but look, they're not telling you this. They're not explaining this. And they're just saying, well, it's in the fine print. Well, they said they accept. That's not good enough. That legalese, if you're hiding behind legalese, you're scum. You're fucking scum. And obviously Facebook is scum. I don't think anyone, I'd love to hear it. Maybe I still have some people that I know, at the Mises Institute. I want to hear the defense for Facebook and for their hiding behind legalese and they're selling off data and everything. I want to hear this great ANCAP case for why Facebook is this wonderful fucking thing. And then you know what I'm afraid of? Is that I'm going to get the answer that, well, it's the market. And, what are you going to do? Like they can choose not to use it and stuff like that. And so pretty much anarchism isn't about ethics. It's just that, well, the market is the ultimate in ethics. And so as long as it's following the rules of the market, who gives a shit? People can do whatever they want. Boy, I'm worried that that's the response I'm going to get. I'm going to reach out to them, and this is going to be a very, very interesting conversation. Maybe I'll even have somebody on the show to make their case of why Facebook is a great thing. Or you know what I bet they're going to say? Here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, we're better off with it than without it. That's a non-answer. Like, that's a lesser of two evils. Okay, well then I guess voting's all right because, you can choose, you're just choosing the lesser of two evils. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Well, anyway, we'll see. But this kind of thing is probably going on across the board. In fact, really you had, and I've talked about this before, Opera, the browser, the web browser, they announced recently that they are putting in a built-in VPN into their mobile web browser, which they had their own VPNs, free VPN service that they were offering before, but they shut that down last year. And now I guess they're just going to bake it right into the browser, much like it is on desktop. Now you can turn that off, supposedly, quote unquote. It's a soft switch, so you're and also Opera is not open source, so you're kind of hoping that they don't just collect all of your data anyway. But anyway, that's going to be coming out for that. And you can say in general, well, that's a very good thing, right? I mean, to have a VPN and be protecting your stuff. Sure. But then I want you to make the choice. And there's some argument to be made for this. And I don't necessarily think it's a lesser of two evils argument. It could be considered a decentralization argument that, okay, your data is going off to some company in China. Well, at least your data is not being stored on some server in the United States where it can and will be used against you, okay, or where the NSA is getting it. And you could say, well, I mean, if you're going to, it's not a lesser of two evils. It's quite simply, when is the last time the Chinese came after you? So have your data over there instead of here. I mean, handing your data over to Facebook, exactly what's going on with that, and it's not good. And there's no controls whatsoever. I mean, it's a horrible fucking idea. So this is not new, but just keep in mind that, you got to be very choosy with what VPNs you want to even run with, even if you know it's a VPN, but be very choosy with what apps you install. This was done it was so insidious how they got this out to people. And for fuck's sake, your privacy is worth a whole hell of a lot more than $20 in gift cards. I hope you realize that. I really hope you realize that. Now, I don't want you to if you are concerned that maybe your teenager or kid installed this somehow, I don't want you to say, hey, hand me your phone, little Johnny, and I want to see what's on there. I want to make sure that you're safe. Have the conversation with them and try to explain to them what really goes on here, okay, and how all this works, and and the nature of these things, because most people just don't know. They're not aware, and Facebook doesn't have the moral compass, even though morality is a spook, but they don't have the moral compass to tell you, or to not, I mean, to be open and honest about what's going on. I mean, they don't care. All right. Or, they certainly don't care about your privacy. They'll sell it off, themselves. I mean, they're getting $20. They're giving you $20. They're making 20,000 probably off of each person, or at least a couple thousand anyway. So it's a shitty deal, even if you wanted to argue from some kind of market standpoint. But regardless, at the end of the day, how many more things does it take for Facebook to do for people to finally say, that's enough? That's enough. We're done with this company. How many more? Because it's funny. If the government was doing this, you wouldn't think it's okay. I don't exactly know why the concern over privacy changes when it goes to a private company compared to government. I think the privacy is an innate part of the human condition. And it is, because there's plenty of research, psychological research, on what happens when people think that they're constantly being watched. There is a change. There is a negative change. It causes stress. It creates all kinds of issues. It is inherently against your biological function to not have privacy. Okay? In this world, you got to work for it. There's no doubt about that. Okay. But again, privacy is a necessity. It is a innate human desire. Private industry breaking, not giving a shit about it, or government not giving a shit about it. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's part of who you are. So I'm looking forward to hearing, okay, make the case for me why it's okay for Facebook. If you're fully aware, but were you, because I've heard that. Actually, I remember I was at an event and I was hosting a panel, and a guy on there pretty much said that, well, you can choose to give Facebook your data. Yeah, but if you don't even know that it's Facebook, if you don't even know that the extent that they're doing it, are you really making an actual informed decision? No, you're not. Okay, if you are, like I said, with Opera, if you're deciding to choose Opera, you are making a genuine informed decision on where that data is going, and you have a really good idea of what exactly is going on. You don't have an idea of what Facebook's doing. And that's what makes it all the more egregious, even beyond the lesser two evils argument. So anyway, this is bullshit. And yeah, delete your social media accounts, or at least delete Facebook across the board. Just get rid of it. I have such a, when is it enough? What do they have to do? Do they have to kill a bunch of people or something? And that's when you'll finally say, okay, I will no longer build my business. I will no longer use Facebook groups. I will no longer do this. What is it going to take? In fact, that'd be an interesting thing for you, the patrons, to tell me. Okay, you tell me what it would take for you to finally say, I want you to war game it in your head. Okay, theorize. What would it take for me to finally delete my Facebook account, or at the very least stop using it. All right, even if you're just there to squat on it, I get it. I know that there's issues where the police have created fake Facebook accounts using your information to try and do a crackdown on a drug deal or something like that. If it's something like that, okay, I guess I get it. But tell me what it would take for you to stop, at the very least, stop using Facebook. You tell me. So, all right. Let's get into, this is kind of a fun question. I like this. Get to talk a little video games quick for a second. Of course, you got a game talk coming out this month. And we're scrolling down here. Okay, so anyway, this is on the Patreon community tab. But I actually already responded to it. But I'd like to do it on a more broader scale. So anyone got a recommendation for a controller that will work with GOG games, or, of course, that being, GOG.com, besides an Xbox controller, something closer to a PS3 or 4 controller or SNES? Just wondering. Thanks. Want it for playing Jazz Jackrabbit specifically. Yeah, I remember, actually, was it just last year? I think just last year, Jazz Jackrabbit came out on GOG. In fact, they released the original, the CD version of the original, and then they released Jazz Jackrabbit 2. These are some of the best. If you've never played these games, I need to review these for a game talk, because these are some of the best platformers you'll ever fucking play. And they were pretty much it was PC's Mario, really, for a long time. And anyway, there's a lot more to good old Jazz Jackrabbit, but just a fun franchise, lots of fun. So anyway, the first controller that I recommended to this person was actually the Hyperkin X11. So the Hyperkin X11 is an Xbox 360, more or less. Yeah, it's not really for the Xbox One. But it's an Xbox, even though those are all interchangeable, more or less. It's an Xbox compatible controller. How about we call it that? It's USB, but it's designed like a classic controller, where it doesn't have, kind of the hand grips going down. It looks nothing like the Duke, which is also, Hyperkin also recently remade the Duke, which that's maybe my favorite controller of all time. But you got to have, kind of those giant man hands for that sort of thing. Anyway, the X11, it has all of those buttons, and so it's compatible, because a lot of games have been released where they specifically map them for Xbox controls, right? With the X, Y, and A, even right down to the colors of them. So it's handy to have an Xbox compatible controller. It really is. So the X11 is kind of a classic, a retro-styled controller, but it has all of the Xbox buttons, which I think makes it really cool. But then this person, when I recommended that, this person brought up the point that they want where the D-pad, and this is an issue. I agree with this. I understand his concern. The D-pad, not the analog sticks. The D-pad on an Xbox controller is where if you is not at like the far left and up on the controller. It's down by where if you were looking at a PlayStation controller with DualShock on it, or a PlayStation 2 controller where the two analog sticks are, with an Xbox, they put the D-pad down by where there was a left analog stick, say on the PlayStation controller. GameCube did the exact same thing, where they put like the camera stick and a D-pad down there. That's a popular way of getting around unfortunately, the patent system, where really PlayStation patented what could actually be down there, because it really only makes sense, in my opinion, for the PlayStation. The way that the PlayStation controller is set up, and you have the analog stick down there, I think that just, where the two are next to each other, that just makes so much more sense. So I completely understand what this person's asking. And I ended up really recommending the X11 Scout, which it's not necessarily Xbox compatible, but the X11 Scout is a premium build of the Super Nintendo controller by Hyperkin. And you can get this in two flavors. You can get it where it actually has the proprietary SNES adapter, which I actually use those for connecting to an analog Super NT, and also, or you can get it in a USB format, where it has a USB connector at the end. And I think he ended up getting that and enjoyed it. Across the board, as far as controllers go, I recommend Hyperkin, what Hyperkin releases, just all the way. I'm a huge fan of their re-release of the original, not Xbox One or Xbox 360, the original Xbox controller, that being the Duke. They could have done more with it, but they really did bring that huge, what we used to call the bread loaf controller, because it was just so fucking massive. But I loved it, because like it finally fit my hands and it wasn't so tiny. They brought that back and they did a great job of it. Again, I wish they would have done a little bit more, because there's like a screen in the middle of it that they could have done some really cool shit with, but they didn't. So there was actually a question underneath that question asked by another patron, which was, oh wow, I had no idea Hyperlink had so much retro gaming stuff. Do those consoles I see in Amazon really play cartridges from various retro systems? Yeah, in fact, Hyperkin, so they don't just do controllers, they do whole systems. Now, they are just running emulators. It's not like the stuff from Analog, where they're doing like a custom board that can play the games perfectly. They are using software emulation, which depends on how much you care about that. If you regularly use emulators on your PC to play retro games, to play classic games from your NES or SNES or Genesis or whatever, you'll have no problem using one of Hyperkin's, one of their consoles. And they're great. Like the Retron 5, there's like, it looks crazy. It looks like a toaster, right? Because it has 5 different slots for like every game system, that you can imagine, almost, that took a cartridge. It's so beautiful. I really love everything. Hyperkin is just this fun little cottage business that I think does a tremendous job. They're better than Retro 8-Bit. They're my go-to. If I'm looking for some kind of retro part for a retro console or system or a controller, or even one that connects via USB, they are absolutely who I go to. I've bought so many X11s from them. If they have it, if they're offering it, I trust them. Also, another controller that I want to recommend really is, Hyperkin also offers probably the best replacement PlayStation 2 controllers out there, because it's tough to get actual PlayStation 2 controllers today. They come at a premium, and nothing feels quite as good as that original PlayStation 2 controller. And I say specifically the PlayStation 2. They have, I think it's called the Warrior or the Brave Warrior models. These are the premier, also just like the just like the Hyperkin Scout, I think is as far as wired controllers. There's the 8-bit wireless controllers that are great. Like the SN30 Pro and so on. Those are awesome. They're really awesome. I have one. It really does a great job, but it connects through Bluetooth. Anyway, as far as wired, and that can connect to the classic console, the Hyperkin Brave Warrior is probably the best PlayStation 2 replacement controller out there. Now, here's a hint, okay? And that is that with the right adapter, okay, and just read the reviews on Amazon, you'll find a good one. With the right adapter, In fact, I might have talked about the best one on a Game Talk recently. It begins with an M. I keep forgetting the name of it. Anyway, with the right adapter, a PlayStation 2 controller with a USB adapter can be your best controller that you can use on your PC in many ways. Even though it's not mapped to Xbox buttons on a lot more modern games, it sure as fuck feels good when you're playing retro games. And in fact, I use my favorite controller now on my C64 Mini is actually a PlayStation 2 controller with a USB adapter. And it plays beautifully, and just, I mean, it's fucking awesome. That is the way to play Commodore 64 games in every sense of the word. And oh yeah, you better believe. In fact, we talked about it on a Game Talk that they are going to release a full Retro Games Limited, I think is the name of the company. They are going to release a full-size version of the Commodore 64 with a working keyboard. And I will definitely be jumping on that. I'm so excited for that to come out. And the C64 Mini can, I don't know, it can just look cute sitting around somewhere. So after that point. Anyway, yeah, so that's what I recommend is just either get anything from Hyperkin or, you know, if in fact, really, you're still buying from Hyperkin, just buy Hyperkin's USB adapters. I don't think they even have a USB adapter for PS2, but get a USB adapter for PS2 controllers and then just buy a Hyperkin PS2 controller and you're going to have something that's going to last you for years. They really, really do amazing work on that. And as I said in the past also, you know, while we're talking about classic consoles, the best, in my opinion, the best console you can buy right now is a modded PlayStation 2, you know, soft modded with, what do you call it? McBoot, free McBoot. Thank you. Yeah, free McBoot. You know, boot it, get it with free McBoot, soft modded, and then you can play. You know, you can play SNES games on that. You can play NES games on that. You wouldn't be able to do Jazz Jackrabbit, I suppose, but I mean, it really opens up a pretty big world for you. So I'm a big fan of going down that road. So anyway, okay, that's it for that. Let's get into our album of the week. But a great question, and yeah, I can't recommend Hyperkin enough. But let's do this album of the week, baby, because fucking A. This is album of the year. It just, again, I cannot imagine what's going to come out, especially since last week's album of the week was a little bit of a disappointment, right? Within Temptations Resist. So this is coming from, of all ironies, there's a lot of synergy here, or a lot of synchronicity here, maybe. This is Beast in Black is the band. Now, in 2018, I reviewed, because I just found out about it, I reviewed Beast in Black's self-titled album, okay, that came out in 2017. And understand that Beast in Black is an outcropping of original members of a band called Battle Beast that I had just learned about and also had albums of the week last year in 2018 for our Wednesday Q&A. So Beast in Black in 2019, in fact, it officially comes out on February 8th, 2019. They have come out with their second album. Their first album from 2017 is a masterpiece. I mean, it's a straight masterpiece. There are songs you are going to hum for the rest of your life off of that. Blind and Frozen, Eternal Fire. I mean, there's just so, it's a track for track album, the first Beast in Black album. This one is... it's a slightly different animal, no pun intended, to Beast in Black, which is such a great name in itself. It's a slightly different animal. There's a lot more, shall we say, dance hooks in it. It's still heavy metal. It's still metal. But there's a lot more dance hooks. This is probably the best representation of this kind of sound, of like a dance metal that has sort of been a term bantied about a bit. Outside of Amaranth, Beast in Black probably does it best. And look, Amaranth took album of the year last year in 2018 with their album Helix. Easily took album of the year. And this is very much in that vein, more so even than Beast in Black's self-titled, their first album from 2017. But the album is titled From Hell with Love, which of course reference to a James Bond movie, From Russia with Love. This is amazing. This is the greatest shit, some of the greatest shit you're ever going to hear in your life. Every song. And in fact, the title track, which is track 2, but, you know, From Hell with Love, you're going to be rocking to that for so long. I was listening to it while I was at the gym. I mean, it's just a fucking masterpiece. There's so many great songs on here. Cry Out for a Hero, Sweet True Lies. Oh man, what was the other one? Well, there was Die by the Blade. That was like the first single to come off of it. That was great. There's a song on it, Unlimited Sin. Amazing. It's just track for track. Every song on here is incredible. And in fact, they do. And this is where we get into some synchronicity with previous albums of the week. Recently, in 2018, I did for Album of the Week, I did the works of Robert Tepper, which if you don't know who Robert Tepper is the guy that did the song from Rocky IV called No Easy Way Out, which is a badass song. Turns out his music is badass pretty much across the board. They did a cover of No Easy Way Out from Robert Tepper on this album, and it's amazing because it's just the rock aspect of it is brought to metal fashion and just taken all the way to 11. You know, it's so solid. I could keep talking about this album for the longest time. I don't know how. It's interesting because Battle Beast, which again, most of the members of this band come out of Battle Beast. Battle Beast is still making great music, even though there was this, even though there was this split, right? You know, kind of like the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church. Okay, there's this schism. Somehow Battle Beast is still making really great music, okay? But Beast in Black is doing way better. Like, I don't know. They're just picking up and running with it. So I don't know who had all the talent or how all that worked out, but I kind of like when this happens. For example, when Jeff Tate left the band Queensryche, which I'm a huge fan of Queensryche. When Jeff Tate left Queensryche, we ended up getting like another Jeff Tate solo album. He started his own band called Operation Mindcrime. We got like 3 albums from them. And we're still getting new Queensryche, right? With their new lead singer, but Michael Wilton and everybody, you know, they're still doing their thing. It's like we have 2 Queensryches right now. And this is kind of how I feel about this, is where when you have Battle Beast and Beast in Black, we kind of have 2 Battle Beasts. And that's only a win for us because now we don't have to wait 3 years for a new Battle Beast album. We can get them, you know, adjoining years, right? Like Battle Beast had an album come out in 2018. Beast in Black had one come out in 2017. Now, Beast in Black's coming out with one in 2019. Maybe in 2020 we'll get a new Battle Beast album. I mean, this is awesome. So I actually kind of like it when these bands split up. They can get back together if they want, but I kind of like when they split up because they really, you know, it's almost like they're trying to compete with each other and see who can come out with a better album. You know, it's not like it's just some solo project that they're doing or some side project. No, these bands are, okay, you pissed me off, so I'm going to try and make a better band. I'm going to do it even better than what I was doing with you. And then the other band is like, well, we'll still do it better because we still have the name. And you have this amazing thing that happens. It doesn't always work out that way, right? Like when LA Guns split, that's only weird, you know, but I am enjoying, just like I'm enjoying how we have 2 bands. We have Jeff Tate's led Operation Mindcrime, and we have Queensryche. And we basically have 2 Queensryches. I am enjoying that. I'm enjoying that in this case with where Battle Beast, we have Battle Beast and we have Beast in Black, and we're just getting double the music. And it's fucking great. So check this out, From Hell with Love. This is probably, like I said, this is probably going to be my album of the year. I cannot imagine something doing better than this in 20... You know, it's not like Kiss is going to come out with a new album. Motley Crue is supposed to have some new music coming out in celebration of their upcoming movie on Netflix, but that's not going to be a full album as far as I understand. So I just can't imagine. Amaranth isn't going to, you know, they're not coming out with a new album. So I just can't imagine who's going to top this. All right. So I think this is going to be album of the year. Anyway, jump on it. From Hell with Love by Beast in Black. You're going to love it. And that'll do it for this week's Wednesday Q&A, which ended up getting released on Thursday. Like I said, we'll get back on schedule. Don't worry. Anyway, I will see all of you on the other side.